Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, riding down Santa Claus Lane. Blitzen, blitzen, all his
My name is
reindeer
George Macy.
pulling on.
I'm going to talk about some of my fond moments with my grandparents, my dad's parents, Emily and Harry. They used to live almost the corner of Avenue Road in Bloor. So it was just coincidentally that the Santa Claus parade went by there. So at early morning, she'd send my grandfather out with a chair, and he'd claim a best spot he could on the curb and make him stay there and guard it till we got there. And I found out later in life that the reason that Santa Claus stopped there, the Eaton family had made arrangements for the Rosedale children because in the Park Plaza Hotel there used to be a coffee shop. So they rented the whole coffee shop and they filled it up with all their kids. And then when Santa came there, he always stopped there for about 35 years. My grandpa Harry, he babysat the building, I don't know, 50 apartments. So he just kept it going because back then there were coal furnaces and there was probably lots of work. That was his job for over 60 years. 50 years later, in the late 60s, it became kind of slummy. I guess they were waiting to demolish it. And where my poor grandparents used to live is now a Louis Vuitton. My grandmother she was born in 1889 and she came to in England in Isle of Wight, and she came to Canada. It had to be 1901 or 1902, and she worked with a family, a physician, and they were the best years of her life. And the reason that she came, there was a program. They were welfare children, and they were called the Bernardo girls, or a more common name, they were the home children. She was a playmate. So she went to school with they only had the one daughter. She went to private school for 5 or 6 years. And of her whole, and then her playmate was going off to finishing school. So she was released when she was about I guess 18. They paid her for the 5 years. It was a small stipend, but she actually, when they let her go, and it was just obvious. And she went to Yorkville Village because at the time it was called a streetcar working man's suburb, because the rent was cheap. So she'd gone there, and then they were just next door to Rosedale. So and she grew up in a family of the serving class, and so she got a job. And then in 1908 she married my grandpa Henry and had her 4 kids, and she had a 60th anniversary, but by then she had dementia, and then she died 3 years later. It was a family, and they figured that my grandmother just didn't get out of bed one morning. She was just, after 63 years, she was just tired of my grandfather's grumpiness. But he didn't like being alone, and he lived another 20 years, I think, after. So he remarried my grandma Gertrude, and this is probably his greatest accomplishment, and managed to talk he was in a long-term care for a long time, and then they got their own double bed, and it was the first double bed, because this is back in the days and on movies and TV, they had single beds, and so that was a great accomplishment. My grandpa Harry, he was born, God, it's almost 150 years ago. He was born in 1882 or something. So he actually grew up in the village. His whole life was based on being an Orangeman. They were zealots. They were empire, real loyalists, and they were chauvinistic, and they were quite jingoistic. Like the empire could do no wrong. He couldn't accept that the king had died, and I think it was George VI. He just couldn't adjust to there being a queen. He was a chauvinist. So the compromise at the lodge, because he played the piano, he played God's, because he said I could only play God Save the King, so they allowed it. And then they would sing the Queen. But another claim to fame that he was the oldest guy He used to walk in the Orangeman Parade, and they used to tow him around on a skateboard type device. And so I toast him. He was a true British patriot.